Aboard a massive ship, desperate cries echo through the void. Behind a sealed door, a gruesome scene unfolds. Bloody hands press against the glass in a final plea, before the last cry for help fades into darkness. And in the silence, a grotesque pod begins to swell. The strange growth spreads, consuming the ship's interior. A grim reminder of the crew that once walked these halls, one of the pods on the floor begins to rupture, just as a clean boot steps into the corrupted hallway. A lone figure clad in pristine armor has arrived. A ship-wide announcement echoes through the halls, calling all troops to the captain, but the order is met with hesitation. The squad leader seems to have other plans, dismissing the captain as a selfish coward. Their new mission is to save anyone who is left. Suddenly, a faint sound catches his attention. A desperate voice from the darkness pleads for help. The squad pushes forward because that's never a trap. But as one soldier turns his head, a strange reflection appears on his visor. A cold sweat breaks out as he realizes it's not a reflection at all. Before them lies a grim tableau of the fallen. The soldier can only stare, frozen in shock. His comrade grabs him, urging him to get a grip. The order is given: find survivors and watch each other's backs. Then, that same faint voice calls out again. He finds a hand reaching from the pile, because of course there's one. The soldier rushes forward, promising to get them out. But in his visor, that same twisted face appears once more. The survivor reveals its true form, a monster with a maw of teeth. His squad mates can only watch in horror as the trap is sprung. The soldier's head is snapped back, his helmet cracking under the pressure. His comrades can only recoil in shock at the sudden attack. The creature reveals its full, horrifying form, claiming its first victim. It stares them down with a bloodthirsty grin, its eyes glowing in the dark. Wasting no time, the remaining soldiers give the order to open fire. But the creature is impossibly fast, weaving through the energy blasts. They unleash a relentless volley, lighting up the cavern with their assault. The monster just takes it, looking almost bored by the effort. It leaps through the chaos, launching an attack of its own. And the soldiers realize too late that they are now the prey. The monster's blood is a weapon, a corrosive acid melting through their armor. Panic spreads as his squad mate rushes to administer an antidote. But there's no time, as another soldier is slammed against the wall. He collapses in a heap, his armor shattered. The suit's emergency systems engage, barely keeping him alive. All around him, the cavern has become a feeding ground. He can only watch in helpless fury. Guess their high-tech gear didn't come with a "don't get eaten" feature. With his last ounce of strength, he reaches for a device on his belt. But the creature is faster, pinning his arm with a crushing grip. But the creature that pinned him seems to have lost interest. A strange, fleshy pod detaches from its body and latches onto his helmet with a sickening squelch. A strange energy surges through him, rewriting his very being. His body thrashes uncontrollably as the transformation takes hold. The pod, its work complete, bounces away from the now still form, only to be swallowed whole by another monster. Table manners are clearly not a priority here, and from the remains of the fallen soldier, a new being rises. It looks around, confused and instinct-driven. Before turning its attention to the sealed door ahead, it reaches out, placing a hand on the scanner. But the system rejects the unregistered user. The creature looks to the small pod for a solution. It seems to have a very simple plan B. When in doubt, just throw a bomb at it. The resulting explosion rips the door from its hinges. Through the smoke, the creature emerges, its form fully revealed. A maw filled with rows of razor-sharp teeth. And inside it finds a terrified audience. It takes a single, deliberate step forward. The students can only scream in abject terror. As the creature's reflection fills their eyes, a new perspective emerges. It is a being that devours everything to grow without end. But this isn't reality. It's a game. A brutal sci-fi survival game where you choose a race and fight to exist. Sometimes our player is a metallic gremlin tearing apart starships. Other times, a hulking mutant dominating ground battles. Or even a hive mind master conquering entire worlds. A modest hobby, really. He's played them all, but only one race truly felt like his own. The amorph. A creature that steals the DNA of its victims to evolve endlessly. At first glance, the amorph seemed powerful, but it was a miserable start. The reason it became his favorite was simple: its ability to evolve freely. His new life begins with a system notification. A UASM hatchling. He opens his eye for the very first time and takes in his new reality. The result of his first design is revealed. He blames his love for classic sci-fi horror for the look. A man of culture, I see. But there's no time for regrets as he begins to move. Suddenly, an unbearable itch takes over his body. He didn't realize shedding skin could be this irritating. His first thought is a primal one. He needs to eat. He scurries across the vast warehouse floor, a tiny creature in a giant world. He knows there are supplies nearby, but getting caught means instant death. Suddenly, his senses sharpen to an incredible degree. He can perceive details from afar, like the logo on a container. His awareness expands, scanning the entire room, pinpointing every object with a strange new perception. And just like that, he finds exactly what he's looking for. He leaps onto a control panel with surprising agility. A password lock. Well, that's a minor inconvenience for a super scorpion. He scoffs at the ridiculously simple password. But before that, he finds a stash of rations. He eagerly tears one open with his pincers and takes a massive bite. The taste is disappointing, but it's better than nothing. But then his instincts flare up. His tail lashes out with blinding speed, impaling a cockroach on the floor. One bug's trash is another bug's treasure, apparently. And just like that, a system notification appears, offering him the wings trait. He understands that gene fragments are the core of his evolution, and the wings trait is his first major upgrade. He accepts the new ability without hesitation. Small nubs begin to push through his back, rapidly growing into a pair of sharp insectoid wings. The evolution is complete, but there's a slight problem. Apparently, they don't come with an instruction manual. He focuses, trying to flex muscles he never knew he had. And with a sudden buzz, he lifts off the ground. But the effort leaves him completely drained and starving. He realizes the energy cost of flight is far greater than he imagined. From the shadows, he watches his potential prey scurry by. He knows there's one specific ability he needs to master his new wings. And with his first target set, he strikes without hesitation, consuming the smaller creature to absorb its essence. But even after the 20th attempt, he's seen no results. And frankly, they're starting to taste like burnt pancakes. His system confirms his status, a hatchling with a simple objective: survive. He desperately needs the robust vitality trait to manage his energy, a common passive skill that would finally free him from this constant hunger. He comes to a simple, grim conclusion. To survive, he needs to hunt a ton of cockroaches. Without a moment's hesitation, he leaps into the hunt, a tiny predator on the move. He lands, spotting his first targets, an unsuspecting roach, completely oblivious to its fate. He strikes down with brutal efficiency. Finally, a meal that doesn't taste like burnt pancakes. But his hunger is far from satisfied as he spots another group. He lunges again, knowing he cannot afford to fail. But his lunge ends with a thud against a metal door. He watches in frustration as his meal scurries away. A moment of pure, unadulterated irritation. He manages to corner another one, striking it down. Without a second thought, he consumes his prize. Another one down, but the hunger remains. Suddenly, a new power awakens within him. He's absorbed the cockroach's robust vitality, because who wouldn't want to be more like a roach? His frail limbs begin to shift and harden. His entire body plating grows thicker and more resilient. With his new, hardened body, he is ready. He solidifies his resolve. The humans on this ship are his enemy. He can sense their faint movements, a constant pressure to grow stronger. It's time to leave the cargo hold where his new life began. He moves with purpose, a destination already chosen. The cooling room next to the reactor, a place few would dare to tread. His backup plan? A little light sabotage of the ship's core systems? No big deal. He navigates the ship's inner workings, a shadow in the vents. Cautiously, he emerges into the quiet room. But something is wrong. He stops, alerted to an unexpected presence. He looks up to see his path blocked by a massive, spinning ventilation fan. His reaction is one of pure, unadulterated terror. Truly a fearsome sight. He tries to dismantle the grate, but the screws are too tight. It seems brute force isn't going to work this time. He realizes that damaging the fan would alert the entire ship to his presence, so he'll have to rely on his unique amorph abilities instead. His body glows, sensing the fine metal dust in the air, and analyzing the subtle slowdown of the worn-out blades. His brain processes all the data in an instant, telling him the perfect moment to move. It's all or nothing as he leaps straight into the deadly vortex. He shoots through the air like a silver bullet, his arm grazing the edge of a blade, but his timing is perfect, and he tumbles through to the other side. He lands, overwhelmed with the simple fact that he survived. After that near-death experience, he decides to keep moving. He stops, hearing voices from a nearby room. He listens as they discuss another failed experiment. Apparently, their boss is going to be super mad. Oh, the horror. He realizes this isn't just a research vessel, but a megacorp operation. And the test subjects, they're all based on Earthlings. He recalls the state of the world, where massive corporations have replaced governments. And among the various human factions, Megacorp is known for its decidedly evil alignment, turning people into slaves. He flaps his tiny, newly acquired wings and decides to scout the area for now. His future path depends entirely on what kind of research this ship is conducting. If they're creating mutant super soldiers, he could gain a powerful new body. And if they're experimenting with psychic powers, he could obtain those instead. He'd prefer the psychic route, but knows that's probably just wishful thinking. Suddenly, a faint plea for help echoes through the empty lab. He cautiously peeks around the corner. The plea for help comes from another amoeba, trapped and in pain. He analyzes its trait, oxygen storage, and deems it completely useless. So, definitely not on the menu today. Instead, he uses his hypersenses to scan the console for a solution. He detects a strange electrical energy source, and his senses tell him one button will end the experiment. He presses it, and as the machine powers down, a message of thanks appears. The creature offers a final word of advice. He's stunned by this act of selfless kindness. Elsewhere, in a sterile high-tech laboratory, a woman in charge makes her presence known. She questions a nervous researcher about the lack of results from test subject 26. He begs for more time, but she grabs him, her patience worn thin. She reminds him that failure could lead to a permanent retirement plan. His pleas are met with an icy, unfeeling stare. She addresses him by his full title, Senior Researcher 80 Wei, but then she changes tactics, walking away with a new proposal. She dangles the promise of a promotion to head researcher, and even better, a powerful connection to the Mars side. She reminds him that very powerful people are watching this project. With 80 cornered, she proposes a new substance, selonium, an untested awakening drug, she explains, calmly stroking her cat. It's the only option they have left on the table. She gives the order to administer it immediately, but 80 frantically objects, warning it could be fatal. Unmoved, she reminds him of their dire situation, and he relents. The machine begins the injection, starting with a tiny dose. Suddenly, the subject reacts, a tremor running through it. Seeing a glimmer of success, she orders the full dose, throwing all caution to the wind. She shoves 80's hand aside, taking full control. The purple serum surges through the tubes, a torrent of energy. The subject convulses, its silent pleas filling the air. But the scientist simply watches with a chilling, satisfied smile. The creature's agony is nothing more than data to her. She turns to the monitor, intrigued by the readings. Finding the results promising, she orders more tests on another subject. Her assistant can only bow and obey. Classic villain stuff. But then her cold composure suddenly breaks. She turns, sensing an unexpected disturbance in the lab. She turns her back on the lab, leaving the specimens behind. But one of the creatures is still thinking about the MC's plea for help. The memory of it is deeply unsettling. Meanwhile, a woman holding a cat delivers a chilling prophecy of death. Just your standard evil boss with a lap cat. Deep within the facility, a vast network of pipes hums with energy, all of them feeding into a central, glowing core. The small creature from the tank is here now, preparing to act. It unleashes a stream of vibrant green liquid onto the machinery. With its work done, it lies back, satisfied. And from its efforts, a new power begins to swirl into existence. A new consciousness awakens, declaring the ship is now an extension of its body. Every piece of data, every secret on the ship, is now fed directly to its mind. It has spent its time creating minions, sending them out to hunt and spy. Through their eyes, it watches its primary target, a woman named Kisagari Yujin. She's the research leader, physically weak but the most important person here, and a major threat to its survival. The creature recalls an incident from 2 days prior, when an escaped test subject caused chaos. And it was Yujin who, in just 2 hours, built a tracker and led the team to recapture the beast. Talk about overqualified. A chilling realization dawns. If that creature had used the vents, it would have been found too. Yujin must be eliminated. But down below, the researcher suddenly freezes. She feels it again. The unnerving sensation of being watched. Yujin glances back, sensing something amiss. But up in the vents, the creature quickly retreats, dismissing its close call. It wonders how she could be so perceptive. Unless she has psychic abilities. Psychic powers, like telepathy and mind control, are common among a certain alien race. But they are incredibly rare among humans. Back in its nest, surrounded by stolen chocolate, the creature ponders its next move. A system notification reveals a new evolution, paralyzing venom. A perfect weapon for a creature with a physically weak body. A single drop can immobilize a human for 5 minutes. But getting close enough to use it is the real challenge. But dwelling on the problem won't solve it. It decides to take a break and enjoy its spoils. Soon it's on the move again, sneaking through the facility. It approaches a large containment unit, a familiar destination. Inside, a small pink creature waits, and our MC has brought it a gift. The stolen chocolate is dropped into a feeding slot and delivered straight to the captive being. The orb glows happily, apparently a fan of fine dining. The creature's thoughts then turn to the lab's researcher, remembering she has a pet cat, which could be the perfect way to create a vulnerability. The creature observes that the researcher's cat is often left alone, making it the perfect bait for its plan. The target, completely unaware, lets out a sleepy meow. From the vents, the creature peers down at the cat, whose name is Caesar, a fittingly imperial name for such a pampered pet. The creature muses that killing the researcher would be simple enough, but its escape route is blocked by a grid of laser sensors. Even the slightest touch would trigger the alarm, leaving it trapped. Suddenly, however, the cat's ear twitches. Its eyes flash open, instantly alert to something unseen. The cat hisses furiously at something just out of sight. It stomps its paw, a silent scream of frustration. The noise immediately draws 2 armored guards to the scene. They find the cat just banging on a small vent. One guard sighs in relief, while the other looks like he needs a raise. Meanwhile, on the other side of the vent, a small spider-like creature lies defeated. It can't believe it made such a huge amateur mistake, but then a sudden realization dawns on it. It remembers seeing the cat looking completely listless and bored, and it recalls poking the cat's tail just to get a reaction. Meanwhile, the soldiers monitoring the situation can only facepalm. The creature remembers its own confidence, its certainty that it had a plan to deal with this. But its opponent was just a simple house cat, who was, at that moment, feeling particularly bored. Then, a sound from the ceiling vent catches its attention. Peering through the grate, it spots a potential new toy. Its eyes light up with predatory focus. With a single, decisive smack, it knocks the vent cover loose, ready to pounce. It scrambles into the vent with a loud clatter. The noise alerts 2 nearby guards. They dismiss it as just the cat, deciding to check on it later. After all, they're confident the little furball is perfectly safe. The cat, however, is busy hunting its way through the ducts. It pauses at an opening, peering into a long, dark corridor. Suddenly, its expression shifts to one of pure shock. It calls out, trying to get someone's attention from its perch. But as it looks down, a mechanical horror descends from the ceiling. Its stinger tail slams into the ground with lethal force. The small creature lets out a final, desperate cry. It's swatted aside by the mechanical appendage, its life ending in a flash of terror. Elsewhere, someone watches in utter disbelief. The true culprit reveals itself, a tiny, skull-faced monster. It happily devours its prey, clearly enjoying the 5-star meal. Meanwhile, in a sterile, high-tech facility, a woman in a lab coat walks with urgent purpose, startling her colleagues. She strides through the command room, past armed guards and anxious staff. Her attention is fixed on one man, the captain. She confronts the captain, demanding to know where Caesar is. But his reassurances fall on deaf ears as she slams her hand on the console.
She screams that her precious Cesar never misses a meal, so something is terribly wrong.
The captain tries to reason with the research team leader, reminding her of their location. He argues the cat has to be somewhere on board, but she just demands he be found. He pleads for her to just wait for good news, but internally he's losing his mind over a missing cat. The priorities of the elite. She then asks about the guards, and he informs her they've all been detained. Her response is chillingly simple: execute them immediately. She leans in, demanding he use his authority for a summary judgment. Her face twists in fury, questioning his hesitation. He tries to argue for due process, for a proper investigation, but his words trail off. Even his own men turn against him, reminding him that this failure falls on the guards. She leans in close, claiming to understand his concerns, but she will use this as an opportunity to enforce discipline. She pauses, a wave of stress washing over her. Then she turns away, giving him a 2-hour deadline. If he fails to deliver, his position as captain is forfeit. No pressure, though. She leaves him stewing in the pressure, watched by his own subordinate, and the captain can only slam his fist down in utter frustration. Elsewhere, someone searches for him from above, peering through a grate. But the little scorpion knows exactly where his pursuer is, already digested. He turns his focus to a new ability he acquired, the Wild Instinct trait. He's an expert on the trait fusion system, having memorized every combination from the game. But this new trait, stripped from the cat he defeated, was one he'd never seen before. The system automatically fused it with his hypersenses, creating the evolved predator instincts. He'd tried to activate it to scan for danger, but his senses were already overloaded, and the new skill simply failed to trigger. He realizes it's a passive skill that only triggers near a real threat. So for now, he's safe. He wonders what she's up to. And right on cue, a hand slams down in frustration. Kisagari Yujin is seething with absolute rage. Meanwhile, a small creature watches from its cage, musing that everything is going according to plan. It smirks, having achieved its second objective: to create a massive rift between Yujin and her soldiers. The source of the conflict? Her pet cat, which ate better than any of the guards. Apparently, nothing fuels a rebellion like watching a cat eat premium steak. She was an untouchable elite, a noble from a megacorp looking down on them all. Since they couldn't protest against her, the cat became the target of their hatred. But now that their buffer has been violently taken away, the trust between commander and soldier is completely shattered. A monstrous entity whispers its thanks to the cat. For now, it's time to collect the genetic fragments of Kisaragi Yujin. In a hidden lab, a researcher realizes he's in deep trouble. He bolts from his station and rushes to a control panel. He activates a containment pod, giving a rude awakening to a creature inside. He runs down a long corridor lined with experiments, as if he's window shopping for monsters. His face is a mask of pure desperation. He stops before one particular pod, remembering another asset he had stored away. A twisted, desperate smile spreads across his face. He slams his finger down on the activation switch. A surge of energy courses through the containment unit. A memory flashes, a subject's desperate pleas for help. Cries that eventually faded into silence. With a final press, he initiates the release sequence. He glances back, a look of grim satisfaction on his face. And as the pod begins to rupture, he simply walks away. Behind him, a monstrous spider-like creature stirs in its cage. Its eyes open, and it seems to utter a single chilling word: pleasure. Meanwhile, in the sterile silence of the labs, other creatures wait in their cages. A crab-like being stares out, lost in silent contemplation. Nearby, a metallic scorpion stirs from its slumber. It rises with a singular chilling promise, not comfort but vengeance. Elsewhere, on the bridge of a ship, tensions are running high as a captain demands results. He's told to wait, but a woman's voice cuts through the tension like a knife. Her face cloaked in shadow, she asks if he dares defy the will of the capital's nobility. The captain stammers, trying to assert his rank on his own ship, but she reminds him that his position is a privilege she can easily revoke, and that she has every right to detain him for his insubordination. The captain and his subordinate stare back in disbelief. He insists it's his right to detain anyone who disturbs the peace on his vessel. Elsewhere, a bruised observer watches the drama unfold with a grim smile. Deciding he's seen enough, he turns and walks away from the screen. Now flanked by 2 armored guards, he marches down a sterile hallway. He stops suddenly before a door marked toilet. He tells the guards he'll be right back after using the restroom. But in a flash, one of the guards is struck down without warning. As the second guard reacts, a voice creates the perfect diversion. And with the crew distracted, the captive creature seizes its chance to escape. The creature's inner monologue reveals the guards are scattered. It knows its target was left alone in the women's restroom. So much for a security detail, with no security measures in place to stop its movements. The conditions are absolutely perfect for an ambush. It peers through the slats of a stall, its eyes locked on its prey. The woman at the sink is completely oblivious, and the creature knows it cannot miss this opportunity. It has already found its way inside through an open vent. The woman splashes water on her face, lost in her own troubles. As she looks down, the creature silently crawls onto the ceiling right above her. Its tail morphs into a deadly stinger, poised for the final blow. The stinger pulses with a strange green energy. It hangs directly above its unsuspecting victim. A single drop of water falls from her chin. Hitting the basin with a quiet splash, she lets out a heavy sigh, staring at her own reflection. But a faint hissing sound cuts through the silence. Her eyes snap open in sudden alarm. She whips her head around, pure terror on her face. The creature dives down, its stinger aimed right for her. A scream tears from her throat as she recoils in horror. But the stinger doesn't pierce her skin. It whips around her head, sending her stumbling backward. The creature faints, then launches itself back into the air with a shriek. This time, its stinger plunges deep into her shoulder. A wave of shock and agony washes over her. Her body convulses violently as she begins to choke. Her legs buckle beneath her, and she collapses onto the floor, completely helpless. A grotesque, foamy substance pools beside her. With a smiley face, she can only stare in horror as the venom works its way through her system. And as her life fades, a monstrous creature looms over her. A voice wonders what she's feeling in her final moments. Fear of the beast or the simple terror of death? In the end, it doesn't matter. Kisaragi Yujin's story ends here. Her essence flows into the creature, carrying her genetic code with it. It feels a missing piece of its own potential finally locking into place. A system notification appears. The conditions for evolution have been met. And without hesitation, its claw moves to accept the upgrade. But just as it's about to cash in its XP, the room is torn apart by a sudden blast. An armored soldier steps through the breach, weapon raised. The blast sends the creature reeling, its form glitching from the impact. It looks up from the floor to see the soldier's weapon glowing with immense power. A wave of pure terror washes over it. It wonders if this overwhelming fear is its new predatory instinct kicking in. An instinct that screams more guards are on their way, and it needs to flee. But it's too late, there's no time to escape. It can only drag its broken body towards the shadows. But then, the soldier speaks, promising to handle the incoming threat. And instead of finishing the job, they turn to stand guard at the door. Talk about a confusing first impression. A look of utter shock crosses the soldier's face. The soldier stands over the fallen victim, who can only look on in absolute terror. But the soldier's attention is suddenly pulled away by a creature that has latched onto their chest. Before they can even react, a sharp appendage is at their throat, and in a flash, the strike lands true. The soldier collapses, their promise to protect now broken. Their body hits the floor. Well, so much for handling the threat. The creature retreats into the vents, thinking it needs to hurry back to its nest. It finds a safe place to rest, cocooned in some kind of organic pod. After confirming the coast is clear, it decides it's time for an upgrade. The system initiates the evolution sequence. Immediately, its very shell begins to bubble and warp. Its form melts away into a grotesque fleshy mass. The old features dissolve into a churning pile of goo. The flesh writhes and reshapes itself, finally settling into a pulsating, brain-like cocoon. Inside, its consciousness drifts, feeling itself becoming something new. It's being remade by strange fluids, unable to see what it's turning into. The moment he entered the cocoon, he lost all control of his body. He had done all he could. Now he could only wait. Meanwhile, in the dark underbelly of the facility, the cocoon rests in a bed of strange organic growth. The fleshy shell begins to swell and pulse with new life. And like a poorly timed egg, it begins to crack. A slender, dark limb pushes its way out of the shell. A new creature, sleek and black, pulls itself free. Its sharp claws plant themselves firmly on the ground. And through the steam, a new silhouette takes its final shape. The creature cracks its knuckles, testing its newfound strength. A grin full of daggers stretches across its face. It lets out a piercing shriek, its bladed tail poised to strike. Elsewhere, a grim-faced official demands answers about a recent death. The medical leader confirms the victim was the head researcher, her neck torn by what looks like a small saw. He asks if they need an autopsy, because saw-like wound is apparently too vague. The team looks to him for their next move. The pressure in the room becomes unbearable. But the man in charge has no answers, only despair. Elsewhere, a man in charge demands an update on the criminal search. His security team leader reports that surveillance came up empty. He's asked if their primary suspect is the one, but the evidence so far suggests he's not their man. The pressure continues to mount on the leadership. He then changes the subject with a chilling question, reminding them of a recent incident in the lab, where a promising talent had his mind preserved in a test tube. Guess HR complaints aren't a thing here. He warns that if that's the punishment for simple disobedience, the consequences for this failure will be far, far worse. The chilling threat sinks in, and the room is filled with cold sweat. One of the team leaders nervously suggests they lie and call it an accident, but he's immediately shut down for his foolish plan. Another man offers an even worse excuse, which is met with pure scorn. The blame game erupts as the researchers turn on each other. Suddenly, a fist slams down on the table, and a powerful voice demands silence. The captain steps forward, putting an end to the infighting. He calmly reports their current location, near planet C08, a name that carries a heavy weight as it's known to be Space Dog's territory. The tension in the room is palpable, as one man asks if they're in this mess because of them. The bald executive mulls over the name that has everyone on edge, Space Dogs, a notorious band of pirates who raid and pillage across the galaxy, and are known as veterans of countless fleet battles. Against such a force, a simple research ship would be torn to shreds, but this threat also presents a convenient excuse to cover up the team leader's recent demise. The only flaw in the plan is their ship's pathetic weaponry. That's when one of the men speaks up, claiming he has friends he can call. The executive, realizing this man has connections with the pirates, grimaces and asks the cost. The price is a staggering 100 million credits, leaving the executive seething with rage. The man justifies the exorbitant price, claiming the risk is just that high. Defeated, the executive grits his teeth and agrees to the terms. As the meeting concludes, the awkward matter of the team leader's corpse is brought up. He orders it to be stored until the space dogs can retrieve it. Meanwhile, far from the ship's political drama, a new life form awakens. It's a larva, and it seems to be enjoying this whole being a monster thing. Rising to its feet, it realizes its old tactics are now obsolete. Before, it was about hiding and surviving. But now, with survival taken care of, it's time to think bigger. A status screen confirms its evolution, revealing it's just the first of 6 stages. The evolution tree shows the path from hatchling to larva, followed by the pupa and pre-adult stages, then the adult form, and finally, ascension, the key to clearing this survival game. Reaching that final stage would reveal all the secrets of his new race. But he knows just how difficult that path is, because in the game, he was the only one to ever see it. Clearly, he had a lot of free time. A sudden realization strikes him. Starting from this very stage, he can unlock specialized types. He immediately pulls up the menu to see what's available. 2 paths are open to him: physical and psychic enhancement. These types function like a skill tree, unlocking powerful synergies when conditions are met. He questions the source of these instincts, realizing he lacks the traits for the psychic path. He racks his brain, convinced he consumed everything he came across. But then a memory flashes through his mind. He recalls Kisaragi Yujin, the one victim he didn't fully devour. To unlock the psychic path, he must find her remains and consume her power. He scuttles through the facility's ventilation system, but his newly evolved body is a tight fit in the narrow ducts. Suddenly, he catches a scent on the air. The unmistakable smell of a decaying body. It's coming from directly below him. A low growl rumbles as he realizes he's found it: the morgue. A place where the dead are supposed to rest in peace. Down below, a lone technician is lost in his music. Keeping a lazy eye on the stasis units, he types away, completely unaware of the new co-worker dropping in from upstairs. But then he pauses. A foul stench suddenly cuts through the sterile air. His eyes widen in alarm. He looks down to find a steaming, acidic substance melting a hole in the floor. And staring back from the darkness of the vent is death itself. He reels back, his mind racing to understand the leak. His first instinct is to call for the guards. But before he can even take a step, a shadow falls over him. A flash of violence and his world turns red. And his work here is permanently concluded. Elsewhere in the lab, a body lies still on a slab. A monstrous hand reaches out from the shadows and reveals a horrifying creature looming over its next subject. Its thoughts turn to another body, a noblewoman perfectly preserved after her passing, a body that no one was ever supposed to touch. The creature holds its prey, realizing it feels no guilt for the kill. It questions if this monster is what it has become, or what it always was. But such philosophical questions are a distraction from the primal need to feed. This is the law of its new existence: kill to survive, and the fallen are nothing more than fuel. As it finishes its grim meal, its teeth hit something hard. A strange, glowing core pulled from within the body. It gives the device a brief, curious glance before shattering it in its fist. And just then, a notification screen materializes in the air. Just as he suspected, the system confirms it. He's acquired the psychic organ trait from his victim, a power that his current amorph form can't even use. Still, he accepts, needing to fill his trait slots to evolve. His body shudders as the new gene is integrated. He takes a moment to contemplate his new, monstrous form. He muses that perhaps this trait will become useful later. With Kisaragi dealt with, he moves on to the next course: a guard. A dark stain is all that remains of his meal. But his hunt is suddenly interrupted. He realizes the next doctor's shift is starting soon. And once they see this room, they'll know a monster is loose. He knows he's not yet strong enough to face the entire crew. He needs a way to buy time to grow stronger. An idea begins to form: a smokescreen. He thinks of the morgue, the chemicals, and a truly wicked plan. The scene shifts, pulling back to the vastness of space. We see Earth, the unofficial capital of the megacorp, home to the 5 great houses that rule, including the House of Yujin, a house that grew from a small Korean company to owning the entire nation. This city is a marvel of technology, with maglev trains and artificial suns. And high above it all, a small traditional village exists in a bubble. Here, a man tends to the earth with a simple tool. He works with a peaceful, contented smile on his face. But his solitude is broken by two men in suits watching from a distance. The farmer continues his work, unfazed by their presence. He finally rises, telling them he's ready to talk. The two visitors, a stern bodyguard and an older attendant, approach. The farmer asks their business and they tell him it's about the young lady. The attendant clarifies, his voice laced with worry. It's about Miss Kisagari, the third daughter. The farmer smiles warmly, asking what happened to Kisagari. The bodyguard delivers the grim news. Her transmitter has been destroyed. But the farmer dismisses it, certain he gave her no difficult tasks. Her last signal, the agent explains, was from Space Dog territory. The farmer places a hand on the man's shoulder as if to comfort him, and then immediately smashes his face in. So much for comfort. The bodyguard is sent flying backward from the sheer force of the blow. He lands hard, left incapacitated on the ground. The farmer, his face now a mask of cold fury, raises his hand for another strike. His simple farming tool falls to the dirt, now a weapon. With a grim smile, he orders his men to clean up the aftermath. He turns to a subordinate, reminding him that tools are not meant to ask questions. He clenches his bloodied fist, recalling the immense cost of creating Kisagari, and he wonders who would be so bold as to disturb the peace of House Eugene. The scene shifts as he discusses the attack with a trusted older advisor. He quickly rules out the rival House Egerton as the culprit. Their leader, he claims, is a coward who wouldn't dare make such a direct move. He asks for his advisor's theory, who suggests the involvement of TNC. A sharp glint in his eye confirms they've reached the same conclusion. The truth is revealed. TNC and Egerton, while public rivals, are secretly in collusion. He muses that the snake was planning to seize control all along. His advisor confirms it. Chamberlain of TNC is after his position. The leader lets out a sharp, almost amused laugh, which quickly fades into cold, calculating fury. With justification on their side, he decides they will be the ones to strike first. The advisor bows, understanding the grim order. Guest diplomacy is officially off the table. The command is chillingly specific. Bring him Samuel Yu and everyone connected to that ship. His eyes burn with rage, roaring that those who damaged his property deserve death. Elsewhere, a figure stands amidst a swirling mist. A bald man stares in horror, unable to comprehend what he's seeing. The scene is one of utter chaos, a morgue filled with smoke and fallen personnel. The bald man confirms the report. He saw smoke and discovered a fire. But he was barred from entry, leaving only the medics to handle the situation. A senior doctor examines the remains, puzzled how a fire could start here. But then, a small detail on one of the bodies makes his blood run cold. He quickly asks a colleague if all the bodies have been accounted for. A horrifying realization dawns on him. Someone is missing. He immediately orders the captain to assemble all team leaders. The news is delivered in a tense meeting. The bodies of the guard and the research leader are gone. He screams in disbelief, wondering if the dead simply walked away on their own. He turns to the medical chief, demanding to know if he's certain. The chief confirms he's checked repeatedly. Only 2 bodies are gone. He explains that a chemical fire is a remote possibility, leading the commander to conclude it was arson. As the leaders wonder who the culprit is, one man nervously suggests an alien is on board. He's immediately shut down by an angry colleague for his ridiculous theory. The commander cuts through the bickering, refocusing everyone on the missing research leader. The captain then reveals a critical piece of information: a scheduled meeting with pirates. He declares they must find the body at all costs, and to do that, they must first find the traitor. At the mention of a traitor, the blonde-haired leader begins to sweat bullets. The captain's eyes blaze with fury, warning that anyone afraid of the noble capital's retaliation had better cooperate. The captain turns to another subordinate, the head of risk management. He orders him to lie to their contacts, assuring them the delivery is on schedule. The subordinate calmly points out they just need to find the body before the rendezvous. With that settled, the captain turns his fury back to the head of security. He grabs the blonde leader, telling him his best is no longer good enough. He's given absolute authority to search every crew member and find the traitor. But while the humans search for a mole among them, the real culprit is hiding in the vents. An alien creature, its plan having gone off without a hitch. It recalls setting the fire, a perfect way to hide its identity and flush out its foes. A little chemistry, a little alien blood, standard arson. The creature is surprised the humans are even discussing aliens. Meanwhile, a man in a dark coat grows suspicious of the new acting leader. The alien, however, sees the pirates as an opportunity, a source for new genetic material. Suddenly, its attention is drawn to a presence nearby. It recognizes him as the supply manager, the very man who denied its existence. Funny how the biggest skeptics are always the most suspicious. He presses a panel on the wall and slips quietly into the cargo hold. The alien follows from above, its own curiosity piqued. It wonders what kind of secret he could be hiding down there. The alien's senses focus on a single container. This one is different, with high-tech security and thick walls. Whatever he's hiding, it's important enough to change the alien's plans. Meanwhile, the man in question is drowning his sorrows. His colleague tries to stop him, but the team leader is lost in his own world. He feels like he's not even living anymore. His mind flashes back to a deal with a black market merchant. He recalls smuggling a crate of mysterious eggs, and one of them hatched. He looks at the broken containment unit, remembering his one critical mistake. Now he's trapped by his secret, terrified of what the captain will do if he finds out. Elsewhere on the ship, a crewmate loudly blames alcohol for his problems. The bartender finally cuts him off, telling him the bar is closing. He's forced out and begins to stumble down the corridor. He wobbles through the ship's hallways, lost in a drunken haze. A sudden wave of confusion washes over him, and in an instant, that confusion is replaced by cold, sobering fear. He whips around, shouting into the darkness, asking who's there. He stares down the long, empty hallway, sweat beating on his brow. Only a heavy, unnerving silence answers him. He curses his luck, a grim realization dawning on his face. His heart hammers against his ribs, each beat a drum of pure dread. He dares a glance back into the oppressive darkness, and catches a glimpse of something unnatural slithering away. His mind struggles to comprehend the impossible sight. Logic shatters and raw instinct takes over. Run. He flees, a desperate prayer escaping his lips. He slams his hand against a panel, begging for the door to open. It slides open just in time for him to tumble through. A truly graceful entrance, if you ask me. Shaking, he reaches for the emergency phone, his only lifeline. But his call for help is drowned out by a violent banging on the door. He can only listen in horror as his fragile sanctuary is breached. The door he just sealed splinters inward, revealing the very thing he was running from. He scrambles away, grabbing the only weapon he can find. But the creature corners him, its shadow swallowing him whole. It opens its jaws wide, a final chilling thought in the air. And with a sickening finality, the hunt is over. The creature's thoughts reveal it had been watching him for some time. It judged his lazy patterns, making him an easy target. Apparently, even monsters hate a slacker. It muses that it's just helping the captain save on salaries. But it's disgusted by the absolute mess left behind. Now its real objective comes to mind, finding the ID card. Its search is briefly interrupted by a photograph. It notes that its current form leaves it feeling nothing. Shaking a folder, the prize finally falls out. With the ID card secured, it has everything it needs. But first it decides it should probably clean up the evidence. The creature disposes of the remains, but finds the taste underwhelming. Even monsters can be food critics. With its task complete, it slips back into the shadows. With the stolen ID card in hand, it approaches a secure terminal. But the system requires a handprint too. Good thing it brought a spare. The heavy doors hiss open, revealing a cold, hidden chamber. Inside, it finds a laboratory filled with secrets, just as it suspected. The pods are cryogenic freezers, confirming the man was a smuggler. But then, a sudden chilling realization strikes it. It looks down and sees something familiar. Amorph eggs. And one of the eggs is already hatched. It stares at the empty shell, wondering if this was its own beginning. The pieces click into place. The team leader was trying to smuggle it. It recalls that in the game, the Amorph starting point was a ruin, not a ship. It pieces together the story. The original creature hatched, escaped, and died of hunger. Only then did its own consciousness take over the empty vessel, which finally explains why roaches tasted like a 5-star meal. It looks down at the empty shell, a silent moment for the life that came before. But that moment of courtesy is over. It's time to act like a true Amorph. It grabs the remaining eggs with purpose, and begins to devour them without hesitation. The first to hatch is meant to eat its siblings, but no predation message appears. It licks its lips, unconcerned, as it eyes the next meal down the hall. A status window confirms its new traits, psychic and physical enhancements. It leaps through the cargo bay, realizing these are powerful late-game abilities. With these traits, it can finally begin its hunt in earnest. It needs to grow stronger, because apparently space dogs are a thing now. Out here in the silent abyss of space, no one will hear the screams of the crew. Meanwhile, inside the ship's landing bay, life goes on, completely oblivious. One of the crew calls his colleague Scott to dinner, but Scott emerges, explaining he's stuck working overtime. His friend sighs, clearly annoyed by the delay. Scott's friend sits down to eat, already complaining about their work. His colleague, Fincher, tells him to drop the shop talk during dinner, but the man insists, leaning in to share a dark rumor he's heard about a coming battle with the dreaded metallic gremlins. Fincher's expression grows grim as he reveals an even worse truth. The creatures aren't coming, they're already on the ship. He claims the strange smell in the air is their scent, and that people are disappearing. Another crewmate chimes in, confirming a team leader has vanished. Fincher now looks concerned, asking why the higher-ups are staying silent. The first man leaps up, convinced it's a cover-up to prevent mass panic. Fincher scoffs at the idea that this is just a scare tactic. He calls the other man a fool for his naive assumption. Elsewhere in the ship's vast hangar, a lone mechanic works late. A colleague named Cameron offers to grab him some snacks. The mechanic, Scott, just asks for a drink instead. He sighs, wondering if this repair job will ever end. But then he pauses, his attention caught by something. Cameron calls out to him, asking him to come over for a moment. Scott tries to brush him off, insisting he's busy. But his coworker's persistence is clearly getting on his nerves. Scott fumes, promising himself this better be important. Meanwhile, Cameron seems completely focused on something else. Scott finally gets up, wondering where his coworker has vanished. A voice calls out from the dark repair bay, beckoning him forward. Cameron's voice urges him to come inside the darkened room. Scott steps through the doorway, asking why the lights are off. His coworker asks for help, but Scott is clearly not interested. He reluctantly moves forward, flashlight cutting through the gloom, but a strange metallic smell suddenly stops him in his tracks. He calls out into the oppressive darkness as Cameron's voice lures him deeper. He takes another step into the blackness, only to trip and go sprawling across the floor. He clutches his head, groaning from the sudden impact. But then a horrifying realization dawns on him. He wonders why Cameron is playing hide-and-seek in the dark. Turns out the rumors about metallic gremlins weren't just for scaring the interns. A shadow rises before him, and he calls out Cameron's name in fear. But the voice that answers is a monstrous, distorted imitation. Before he can scream, a hand clamps over his mouth. The creature inspects its prey, seemingly delighted with its catch. A choked cry for help echoes from the darkness. Just then, Cameron arrives with drinks for his coworker, Scott, but he finds the workshop empty, with only a wrench left on the floor. He knows something is wrong. Scott never abandons his post. Suddenly, a voice calls out, claiming to be in the repair bay. Cameron is suspicious, asking why he'd be in there. The voice, now sounding like Scott, asks for help moving something in the dark. With a sigh, Cameron heads in, because what could possibly go wrong? He steps into the pitch-black room, flashlight in hand, only to find another light on the floor. Confused, he reaches for the dropped flashlight, a sense of dread growing. As he grabs the second light, something wet drips onto his face. He recoils in confusion, touching his neck. His hand comes away stained crimson. He stumbles back in horror as more drops fall around him. From the oppressive darkness above, a pair of eyes stare back. The flashlight beam reveals a horrifying creature clinging to the ceiling, and the mangled source of the voice it had been using. It drops its victim, seemingly pleased with its hunting prowess. Turns out, this is a redworm larva, one of the supply manager's little side hustles. A creature that evolved to mimic voices, turning sound into a deadly lure. By consuming the larva, he's absorbed its genetic traits. But this new ability has a catch. He can only mimic the voice of his most recent meal. A plan forms to use Cameron's voice as a lure tomorrow. With his hunt complete, his thoughts turn to another creature. He decides to give it a new name, number 26. He decides to pay a quick visit before returning to the nest. But a voice suddenly echoes in his mind. He realizes he can communicate through brainwaves. He tries to greet it back, but telepathy is apparently harder than it looks. The voice in his head greets him, its thoughts simple and direct. Food. He notices its vocabulary has grown, wondering if the psionium is responsible. He apologetically explains that getting food is difficult now, and that he simply can't provide any. He warns that the usual passage is now far too dangerous. After the research leader's disappearance, security was tightened across the lab. He hasn't been able to bring it food for days, leaving them with just awkward small talk. Understanding, number 26 says its farewells and begins to leave. He watches it crawl away, feeling a sense of helplessness. If he could just reach the pupa stage, he could help it. But the conditions for evolution are strict. The path to evolution is clear. He must consume 10 members of 2 different intelligent species. But with only humans on this ship, that path is completely blocked. Suddenly, a faint voice reaches out to number 26. A message, fragmented and weak, trying to make contact. It's the risk management team leader, reporting that everything is going according to plan. But then, he receives an unexpected directive, an order from the house. He quickly composes himself, feigning absolute obedience. He confirms that Lady Kizaragi is gone, and the ship will arrive as scheduled. But the voice reveals a critical piece of information. All of Captain Samuel's orders were recorded. The team leader places his hand on a console, clarifying his true allegiance is not to the house, but to Master Jungwoo Eugene. The team leader gives his final instructions to the creature, which gladly accepts its new mission. The creature muses on the team leader's cunning, realizing he's playing a much deeper game. Elsewhere, a very angry, very bald man is having a very bad day. He slams the table, reminding everyone that they're meeting with pirates in 2 days, and that despite all their security, people keep disappearing. He demands a head count of the missing, and the number is a grim 8. He accuses them of being in league with the perpetrator. While the creature itself listens from the vents, amused by the irony, the man slumps back, utterly defeated, when a calm voice cuts in. It's the team leader, defending the security chief and vouching for his efforts. The man is furious, questioning why he's defending a failure. He stammers, trying to clarify his accusation. But the team leader clarifies his point. The search was perfect by human standards. He suggests an unknown entity is to blame, while the real culprit listens in, amused. The risk management leader scoffs, reminding them the ship's AI once ran battleships. He's confident that any mere animal would have been caught instantly. The team leader then brings up a chilling point: the empty freezers in the supply container. He asks where all the supplies could have possibly gone. 2 other men look up towards a vent, their worst fears suddenly dawning on them. He asks where a monster could hide, clearly not a fan of classic sci-fi horror tropes. The team leader declares there are still places they haven't looked. He points directly upwards to the ventilation ducts, a network that spans the entire ship, with more than enough room to hide. But another man is skeptical, recalling how even small creatures can bring down battleships. Unseen by them all, the creature known as Arnold silently plots its next move. In the command center, the higher-ups are more concerned with the political fallout, because a missing body could trigger a war, which is just terrible for quarterly reports. The commander decides they must deal with the internal threat first. He asks the risk management leader for his plan, who requests 6 squads for the search. As the order is approved, the monster crawls deeper into the ship's metal guts. The monster reflects that it lasted a while, but this confrontation was always inevitable. It knew Arnold's cautious nature would mean the ducts were secured and sealed. Now cornered in its nest with no escape routes, a decision must be made. The classic dilemma, fight or flight. As it decides, a change begins to ripple through its body. Back in the command center, the risk management leader explains his reasoning. He knows only the ship-wide duct system could hide something so well. He declares that to protect their people, they must first deal with the monster. You know, basic pest control. But the pest they're hunting has just received an upgrade. It scoffs at their arrogance, thinking they can capture an amorph so easily. It declares its identity as the amorph, a predator to its very core. And with a terrifying roar, it embraces the coming fight. They plan to capture it in the ducts with just a few soldiers. The amorph will teach them what hell in space truly looks like. With a single touch, it sends a shockwave through the ship's systems. Its hypersenses begin analyzing every single part of the vessel. It now sees the ship's entire layout and the movement of its enemies. The spaceship has become its body, a parasite infecting an inorganic brain. It knows the command crew is gathering on the bridge, planning their futile attack, and it watches the armed soldiers splitting up to hunt it down. So much for the element of surprise. It has a rough plan in mind. Time to give its guests a warm welcome. Meanwhile, in the control room, Team A begins its sweep through the corridors, and the comms officer directs Team B to do the same. But one of the squads is already reporting radio interference. The scarred commander watches on, believing the monster took out one of his own. He knows they must eliminate all variables before their special asset arrives. He makes a silent vow to end the creature's existence today. On the map, both teams move predictably, taking the same turn. Then, one soldier's radio cuts out, forcing him to stop for repairs. How convenient. In the control room, the commander orders a slow, thorough search. Something catches his attention. He notices a camera on B3 isn't moving. The operator radios the soldier to check its status, but the line is completely silent. Then a voice finally crackles through, claiming all is well. Still, the operator orders another soldier to meet up with him. On the map, the 2 units begin to converge. One dot moves steadily toward the other, until the 2 finally meet. But back in the control room, chaos erupts. The team leader is asked what happened to Unit B2, and he can only stammer that he has appeared. A cold sweat runs down his face as the reality of the situation sinks in. The communications officer frantically reports that they've lost contact. The monitors are all static. B2 has vanished without a trace. The higher-ups are stunned, unable to process what just happened. They demand answers from the panicked officer. Looks like someone's getting a bad performance review. But all eyes turn to the risk management leader who stands frozen in shock. He realizes a soldier in enhanced armor was taken down instantly and clenches his fist, admitting he gravely underestimated his target. Snapping out of his shock, the leader barks out a new command. All units are to consolidate their forces and search for the missing soldier. Deep within the facility, Team B3 acknowledges the order. The leader knows that staying separated is a death sentence. Finally, some basic horror movie survival sense. On the map, the two remaining teams move to rendezvous. But then, a tense voice comes over the comms from Team B1. He hears something. The control room holds its breath as he reports someone approaching his position. A moment later, the tension breaks. It's just Team B3. The comms leader lets out a sigh, asking for confirmation once they've linked up. But the only reply is static. The static gives way to a horrifying message. B3 has been taken by the enemy. As chaos erupts, a new figure steps onto the scene. The team leader takes command, demanding a detailed explanation from the panicked operator. But the man can only say it happened too fast, drawing the leader's explosive anger. He stammers an apology, clearly out of his depth. Looks like someone's getting a bad performance review. Overwhelmed, the comms leader throws his headset down in defeat. But the team leader is already processing the information, questioning how they could miss something so close. He notes that neither team appeared on the cameras, an impossibility unless it was intentional. Then, a sudden, chilling realization dawns on him. He picks up the headset, a grim understanding settling in. He brings the headset to his ear, his face a mask of cold certainty. Speaking into the mic, he addresses Team B1, demanding they identify themselves. He repeats the order with chilling intensity, leaving no room for evasion. On the other end, the voice clicks its tongue, realizing the ruse is up. And just like that, a monstrous hand smashes through a monitor in the B1 control room. The operators can only stare in wide-eyed terror. As the feed cuts to static, one of them falls back in shock. The team leader, now sweating, desperately tries to raise Team A1, but the only response is a menacing, silent glare from the other side. Guess he's not much of a talker. Then a new voice calmly explains that he's already taken care of Team B, as a monstrous appendage is shown amidst the wreckage. The voice explains its strategy, using their own wavelengths against them. This scrambled the equipment of a soldier who fell behind the main group, leaving him isolated and vulnerable to its newly developed neurotoxin. After that, it was a rather satisfying meal. With Team B eliminated, its focus now shifts to Team A. It begins to stalk its new prey through the facility, and finds them moving cautiously down a long corridor. The creature notes that their high alert is to be expected. Unlike the last squad, this one heard its voice mimicry and will be wary, which means the hunter will have to be a little more creative this time. It peers down from the vents, knowing the squad will pass right below. It reflects on the irony of knowledge, how knowing too much can be a fatal flaw. Meanwhile, the squad leader prepares to advance. He confirms their location near the control room and directs his team to the right. He gives one final chilling reminder. If you hear a human voice, open fire. And as if summoned, a plea for help rings out. Well, that was convenient. The leader immediately identifies the trap and orders them to shoot. The squad unloads a volley of energy rounds down the hall. Their target is engulfed in the chaotic barrage. The leader signals to cease fire, his expression unreadable. The leader orders the rest to hold their position and provide support. But as one soldier advances, he's ambushed from the ceiling. A cry of pain echoes down the hall as his squad mates call out. He desperately tries to warn them of the enemy behind him. The creature has taken him hostage, using him as a shield. The squad hesitates, but the leader's command is absolute. So much for the no man left behind policy. Reluctantly, the soldier raises his weapon and opens fire. A storm of green energy once again floods the corridor, piercing both the monster and their own comrade. The corridor is empty, but the orders from command are clear. Capture the target, no retreat. The soldier they shot through gasps for air, his life fading. His squad mate rushes to his side, desperately trying to stabilize him. He activates an emergency medical treatment built into the suit. The wounded soldier groans, barely clinging to consciousness. With treatment administered, they're ready to resume the mission. Because paid sick leave is not in the budget, One soldier's eyes burn with rage, promising a brutal end for the monster. But they find a clue on the ground. The creature was wounded in the blast. Its blood is acidic, unlike anything they've ever encountered. Undeterred, the soldier presses on, moving cautiously through the dark halls. The path forward is a narrow, suffocating corridor. To even the odds, one soldier requests permission for combat enhancers. The team leader immediately grants the request. A surge of raw power floods his vision, and his body convulses from the strain. He channels the agony into a single, focused point of rage. Vowing to end the monster, he declares he'll take the lead. He steps into the darkness, ready for a fight, but he stops, noticing the acidic trail leads somewhere unexpected. The creature simply melted its own exit. Guess it doesn't believe in doors. The armored squad finds the melted hole in the floor. They report that the creature has escaped into the corridor below. As they coordinate their search, they fail to notice the real threat lurking just above them. In a flash, the monster drops from the ceiling. One soldier whips around, alerted by the sudden movement. The creature lunges, a blur of claws and teeth. He opens fire, but the shots go wide as the monster closes the distance. His eyes widen in sheer terror. The creature slams into him with overwhelming force. His partner can only watch as the soldier is violently thrown aside. The remaining soldier lets out a furious roar. He unloads a barrage of energy blasts down the corridor. But the creature's bladed tail whips down with lethal speed. The soldier counters with a desperate swing of his own. He stands over his fallen partner, a lone defender against the beast. Overwhelmed by rage and grief, he slams his fist down. The impact cracks the very floor beneath him. Guess someone's losing their security deposit. The monster seizes the opening, lashing out with its tail. But he's ready, meeting the attack with another volley of shots. A sudden cry of agony escapes him as the pressure mounts. Elsewhere, the small creature scurries through the dark complex. It pauses, reflecting on how its targets were stronger than expected. The enhancement shots weren't enough. This wasn't like the simulations at all. It realizes it can't fool the AI with simple tricks anymore. And just like that, a devious idea sparks to life. It remembers there was one thing it overlooked. The soldier, still lying in the hallway. The man groans, barely conscious inside his helmet. Through the visor, his eyes are heavy, the will to fight fading fast. Suddenly, a faint, pained sound echoes from the darkness. The creature peers around the corner, perfectly mimicking the soldier's cries. The creature emerges, its cries of pain a perfect, chilling mimicry. It lunges at the fallen soldier, a blur of violence and hunger. The soldier's last sight is the monster's face, inches from his own. A single sharp claw plunges deep into his chest, piercing straight through the heavy armor and tearing out with brutal, final force. The creature takes a moment to savor its prize. Well, so much for that guy's pension plan. It seems satisfied thinking its work here is done. But it's not quite finished with him yet. It knows this attack will alert the others. But first, it reaches for the soldier's helmet and smashes the camera, cutting off the feed. Too late. The distress call goes out. A3 is down. Elsewhere, another soldier sprints through the corridors. His face is a mask of grim determination. He finds his comrade at the end of the hall, calling out his name. Rushing to his side, he desperately tries to get a response. He pulls out a medkit, hoping to stabilize him. But the creature was waiting, and the rescue is cut brutally short. A sharp pain pierces his throat, his words cut short. He collapses to the ground, clutching the fatal wound. His gaze falls upon his comrade, already lost. He chokes, his life slipping away with every gasp. In the distance, he sees the monster standing over its first victim. It turns, revealing its full, horrifying form. So much for a quiet rescue mission. A sharp tendril wraps around his helmet. It rips the gear from his head with terrifying ease. The monster leans in, promising to enjoy its meal. The soldier's world dissolves into pure agony. A tendril snaps tight around his neck, and the feed from his helmet cuts to black. The last transmission is a silent, blood-splattered view of the floor. In the observation room, the scientists recoil from the gruesome display. Their commander realizes the monster is coming for them next. The MC, in his new form, considers his next move. He's taken out 6, leaving only 90 more to go. He knows this ship lacks the latest enhanced gear. But if they bring out plasma weapons, this hunt could get dangerous. He knows plasma weapons are designed for large-scale warfare. The standard models are too cumbersome for a single soldier. At best, they might have 1 mid-weight launcher per squad. But given this ship's outdated armory, he doubts they even have that. He watches from the shadows, waiting. The soldiers move to the agriculture section, thinking he's preparing a siege. And with them distracted, his opportunity arrives. While they search the wrong place, he'll hunt the leaders. Elsewhere, panic spreads through the command team. And one officer has a brilliant idea. It's probably that other monster on board. Crouched within the vents, he listens in on the command team's frantic debate. He learns the gear he just shredded was supposedly their best. Above, the bald commander rages, blaming their losses on cheap equipment. But the risk management leader coldly dismisses his excuses. He insists they must act with the limited information they have. And then, he makes a chilling request. He wants permission to use the plasma launchers. The other officers are stunned into outrage. Firing those weapons inside the ship would be suicide. A truly inspired risk management plan. And as his enemies fall into disarray, the hunter below prepares to strike. From its hiding place, the hunter scans the room, realizing its main target is out of reach. But the one closest to it is a man named Wei. It remembers this man well, researcher Wei, his daily tormentor. A plan for revenge, long in the making, suddenly falls perfectly into place. With a powerful push, it launches itself from the floor below. On the bridge, the officer's eyes widen, sensing the sudden shift in the chaos. The creature erupts from the ground, soaring towards its screaming target. We can only watch in horror as jaws of death descend upon him. The hunter lands, and the researcher's screams are silenced in an instant. The surrounding staff can only stare, frozen in terror at the carnage. The terror spreads as the creature turns its attention to the next victim. Another researcher is taken down in a flash of violence. One by one, the staff fall to the monster's relentless assault. Panic consumes the hallway as the survivors desperately flee the carnage. In the control room, an officer frantically tries to issue a ship-wide alert, but his warning is cut brutally short. Talk about terrible timing. The bridge falls silent, another room claimed by the hunter. Suddenly, a strange green light emanates from the creature's body. But one man stands his ground, aiming a simple pistol at the beast. The creature scoffs at his bravery, knowing such a weapon is useless. The creature mocks his futile effort, ready to strike, but a single shot erupts in a blinding flash. The energy triggers a phantom pain in the creature's mind, a memory of being pierced by the very same power, a green beam of light that once tore through its flesh. Back in the present, the hunter is completely stunned. It recognizes the weapon with a surge of panic. A plasma pistol, a weapon of immense and costly power. He must be from the Yujin house, which is just fantastic news. The man's eyes narrow, his resolve unshaken. The man from Yujin house confirms it with a smug gesture. The weapon gleams in his hand, terrifying the onlookers. Because apparently, the real crime here is the price tag. He sizes up his target, a predatory smile on his face. He notes the monster's diverse abilities, comparing it to his own master. Without another word, he opens fire. A searing bolt of plasma cuts through the air and tears through the smaller creatures with ease. He intends to clean up all loose ends before his master arrives. The hunter realizes this is the greatest threat it has ever faced. He recalls his past victories in even more dangerous games. We're taught that predators are fearless incarnations of violence. But in reality, the greatest hunters are cowards who avoid unnecessary risks. A lesson he learned from years of gaming, of all things. And as a blast narrowly misses, that lesson is put to the test. The man in the coat seems almost amused by the dodge. His scanner reveals the truth. The hunter's heart is steady. He recognizes the scent of a true predator, just like himself. With blinding speed, the hunter leaps over the console, barely escaping the shot that follows. The team leader unleashes a volley of energy blasts, riddling the creature's form. But his colleagues are more worried about the expensive equipment. He gives a curt reply, promising to be careful. He drops into a firing stance, taking careful aim. But the hunter is too fast and the shot goes wide. Frustrated, he glares into the shadows where his target vanished. From behind cover, the hunter realizes it was all a feint. The team leader is already on comms, calling for backup. The hunter understands now, this wasn't an execution, it was containment. He's just stalling, protecting the others until reinforcements arrive. The hunter smirks, acknowledging his opponent's talent for deception. But he knows he has to end this before those reinforcements arrive. And just then, he spots the perfect tool for a little chaos. With a quick pull of the pin, he takes aim from the shadows. A blinding white cloud erupts, engulfing the hallway. The team leader dismisses the move as a petty trick, but it's enough cover for the hunter to make his move. The entire squad is disoriented, lost in the thick smoke. Their leader can only scream in frustration at his blinded soldiers. The team leader scans the smoke, a terrible realization dawning on him. He screams for his men to evacuate the captain, as a reptilian eye watches from the shadows. But his last-second judgment was fatally wrong. A monster's jaws open wide behind him, and snap shut with brutal finality. Elsewhere in the fog, a soldier calls out for his captain, hearing a faint reply. But another voice calls from a different direction, leaving him confused. A comrade warns him it's a decoy, unaware of the creature creeping up behind him. Another swift, silent strike thins the squad's numbers. The last soldier stands frozen as a voice reveals the team leader has fallen. The blonde soldier screams a warning, claiming the voice is a mimic. He runs through the fog, insisting he's the real team leader. He orders the last man to open fire on the monster, but instead, he's the one who fires his weapon, sending a searing blast into the mist. A hand trembles, its owner's shoulder torn apart by the attack. The true team leader emerges from the smoke, wounded but furious. Looks like the monster picked the wrong guy to impersonate. He spots the imposter and unleashes a counterattack of his own. The green energy slams directly into the shape-shifting creature's head. The creature is sent skidding across the floor from the force of the blast. But it begins to contort, its back splitting open grotesquely. Sharp, blade-like appendages burst from its spine. It then launches itself through the air, straight at the team leader. In a horrifying flash, a devastating blow is delivered. The body falls, the strike having been instantly fatal. The monster stands over the fallen form of the team leader. Its claws are stained from the brutal counterattack, but through the smoke, a teammate sees a familiar silhouette and calls out in disbelief. The figure is already moving, a blur of motion rushing past his terrified face. The teammate's scream echoes through the chaos. As the monstrous figure closes in and seizes him in a brutal grip, he's dragged away, catching a glimpse of its terrifying, winged form. The creature makes a swift escape through the ceiling. It retreats down a deep shaft, its instinct screaming at it to run. Just then, reinforcements finally arrive, and their leader is less than pleased, yelling at them for their tardiness. He orders them to secure the gruesome scene immediately. A captain receives the casualty report, learning the acting medical team leader is among the fallen. The commander demands to know if there are any survivors. He's told only one person made it out, senior researcher Wei. He was apparently immune to the monster's neurotoxin, but the damage is permanent, leaving him a shell of his former self. The subordinate then makes a shocking suggestion. Surrender to the pirates. The commander explodes, accusing him of pure cowardice, but the subordinate coldly tells him to get back to work. Guess HR isn't a priority right now. Left alone, the commander surveys the grim aftermath. He runs through the list of fallen leaders, his fury growing, and for a moment he considers abandoning it all, unaware that he's being watched. The commander spots something unusual, a team leader's weapon. He orders a soldier to retrieve it from the fallen. The energy pistol is placed in his hand. He checks its charge, noting it's still functional enough for self-defense. The cracked energy cell reflects his own fractured trust in his crew. He walks the desolate halls, caught between a monster on board and pirates on the way. Meanwhile, deep within the ship, the true predator stirs. It emerges from the grotesque remains of its victims. With the leadership gone, it declares its intention to expand its nest. Apparently, it's time for some aggressive interior redecorating. It begins to strategize its takeover. First target, the cafeteria. Next, the armory, to neutralize the one weapon that can stop it. And finally, the lab, for a little genetic shopping spree. With the resources there, it can evolve and prepare for any enemy. The plan is set: infest the ship and steal the plasma launcher. It moves through the vents, haunted by a previous conversation. The words of a dying man spoke of a mysterious figure named Eugen. An unknown enemy is the greatest threat, so it must be prepared. It emerges from the darkness with a cheerful greeting. But from the shadows, someone is watching, noting number 26's good mood. The shadowy observer questions its good mood, and number 26 confirms the pain is gone. It realizes the facility must be on lockdown, with everyone hiding. This seems like the perfect opportunity to be a little bolder. Suddenly, red emergency lights begin to flash. An armored guard stands watch in the crimson-lit hallway. Number 26 waits patiently in the shadows, wondering what's happening. After 30 minutes pass with no movement, a new personal best for patience. It decides there's no longer a need for caution. It pushes open a ceiling grate and drops down. Landing in a familiar lab, it greets the old equipment. Its gaze falls upon a small, pink creature floating in a containment unit. It realizes the creature will starve if left here all alone. A quick assessment reveals the slime is hardy and not a picky eater. So it offers the little creature a chance to escape. The slime is, unsurprisingly, very keen on the idea. With a silent warning to be careful, it prepares to act. It launches itself directly at the glass containment unit, shattering the tube and catching the slime mid-air. The grateful little creature happily attaches itself to number 26's back. But the slime seems to have a plan of its own, telling it to just wait. Number 26 watches, confused, as the slime announces it's making a nest. But it seems number 26 has its own idea of interior decorating. It unleashes a torrent of green fluid from its mouth, which rapidly grows into thick organic vines covering the entire room. It then connects its own body to the new growth. A quick and effective way to ensure no one can use this lab again. With the redecorating done, it's time for a snack. It consumes the preserved brains, ignoring the awful taste for the sake of nutrients. The little slime, however, seems to be enjoying its meal just fine. But the feast is cut short as number 26 senses an abrupt change. He senses their approach, wondering what took them so long. He identifies two distinct presences, a soldier and a researcher. He scoffs, thinking they'd need an entire squadron to stop him. The two men arrive at the lab's entrance and are immediately stunned by the sight before them. Apparently, aggressive overgrowth wasn't in the mission briefing. The soldier realizes these aren't just plants, and they're not alone. He snaps his rifle into position, unleashing a volley of energy blasts as the creature lunges. But his attack is met with overwhelming speed and force. The creature's tail pierces through his armor in a single devastating blow. His final moments are a blur of pain and terror. The soldier is swiftly and brutally dispatched. As the body falls, the creature spots another human cowering in the corner. The researcher's pleas for mercy are ignored as a claw descends upon his face. But the creature hesitates, a strange sensation echoing through its mind. A small pink slime emerges from its back, having a sudden realization. It recognizes this man as one of the scientists from the bubble slime experiments. And it seems this little guy just remembered it holds a grudge. The researcher freezes, understanding that his past has finally caught up to him. The creature offers the researcher a final horrifying gift. The pink slime lunges forward, enveloping his entire head. A gruesome end as the slime begins to dissolve its target. The creature ponders the nature of death, before deciding it doesn't matter how you die, as long as you become a meal. It then turns its attention back to the system interface. A new notification appears, a reward for its recent acquisition. It seems the creature has achieved its goal much faster than anticipated. After consuming over 500 samples, it has finally unlocked a new specialization. Now holding the very slime that delivered its revenge, it wonders if it should activate this new power. It tells the little slime to wait. A process is about to begin. With a single decisive tap, it confirms its choice. A violent surge of energy rips through its body. Its very form begins to twist and contort. A dark power envelops it, forcing a painful evolution. The little pink slime can only watch, reflecting the monstrous change. But then, the slime itself begins to glow and expand. It grows larger and larger, seemingly sharing in the power-up, only to deflate moments later back to its tiny size. Well, that was anticlimactic. The creature observes its companion, noting that it has grown up, though the slime seems utterly confused by the statement. The slime seems to be arguing, insisting that the creature is the baby. It bounces around emphatically, while the creature simply looks on. He considers his own larval state and admits the slime isn't entirely wrong. He'll wait until his companion learns more words before trying to explain. Turning his attention inward, he assesses his new, more robust body. His height has increased, and his limbs are now covered in tough biological armor. The leg strengthening skill has made his legs incredibly thick and powerful. It's time to check the stats, and a complex screen appears before him. The upgrades are impressive, but there's a type penalty that catches his eye. The requirements to acquire a new type will double with each one he learns. He reflects that in a game he would have timed this better, but for now he'll postpone the next unlock to test his new traits. First, he summons the saw blade tentacles. The barbed whip cracks through the air, striking a nearby wall. When combined with his physical enhancements, it becomes a truly powerful weapon. Next on the agenda is the contamination organ. He can now generate spores that secrete a powerful acid on command. With this ability, he can turn the entire ship into a deadly fortress. With his checks complete, he heads toward his next destination. But a strange pink sac on his tail seems to ask where he's going. He wonders how the crew will react to his new form. And it seems he has his answer. The crew scrambles in a desperate panic. They rush to seal the blast doors behind them. But one man is completely paralyzed by fear. So much for no man left behind. His colleague shoves him aside to grab the lever himself, and the heavy doors begin to seal shut. But something smashes through the reinforced metal, and it's not the creature they were running from. A maw of jagged, crystalline teeth opens wide. The new arrival towers over the terrified men, a predator unleashed. Their screams for help echo through the corridor, but the creature isn't interested in them. It lunges into the crowd behind. A desperate hand slaps against the door, leaving a final fading mark of the chaos within. Far away, a colossal ship drifts silently through the void. And inside, a single eye remains shut, lost in a dreamless state. A man floats in a healing pod, his body a canvas of scars, wondering where everyone went. His hand twitches as he tries to convince himself this is all just a nightmare. He questions what sin he committed to deserve this torment. His eyes remain closed, but his senses are on high alert. The sound of footsteps echoes through the chamber, and he wonders if soldiers have arrived. But as his eye snaps open, he realizes it's something far worse. The same monster from his nightmares has returned for him. But instead of attacking, its bloodied finger presses a single key on a console. He watches in confusion, because apparently this monster also knows how to type. Suddenly his eye widens in shock. A strange energy begins to envelop his head, igniting a searing pain that feels like his mind is burning from the inside out. But the agony flooding his mind isn't his own. He's reliving the final, desperate moments of the creature before him. 3 hours later, the lab has fallen silent. The monster is given a strange pink substance which it consumes. Through their new mental link, he asks if it feels the satisfaction of revenge. But looking at the remains of its tormentors, the creature has no such concept. He realizes this being, number 26, lacks any higher emotions like vengeance. A chilling thought surfaces about the researchers' true purpose for it. They wanted it to evolve into a sea demon, a colossal, multi-eyed horror from the game. He once dismissed the similar designs as lazy, but now he's not so sure. The creature communicates a simple, primal thought. It's full. After its meal, it seems tired, almost docile. Meanwhile, its nest continues to spread, overtaking the sterile facility. The expansion is proceeding exactly as planned.